Telsey, you just got back from Maui. Please tell us what you saw there. This is so heartbreaking for all Americans to see.
Yeah, Laura, it's difficult to put into words this tragic loss that continues to grow, that we're continuing to see and experience and feel every time there are more and more names and numbers of our friends and neighbors in Lahaina who have perished because of this wildfire. Now, there's still over 1,000 people who are missing. There's still the vast majority of that area of devastation that needs to be gone through by those who are conducting this recovery operation. But I also want to speak to the many families who live in the communities surrounding Lahaina, just north of that historic town, who are continuing to struggle. Many of them did not have power for days. They were told the water was contaminated, having to shower and bathe their children with bottled water, cut off from communication. The cell phone towers were down. They had no Wi-Fi or internet connectivity. These are people who stood up in the midst of this tragedy and did everything they could to help each other. The sad part is we are 8 days past this wildfire, and I'm in constant touch with these community members and leaders. They are still not seeing response from the county, the state, the federal government to be able to go out and help them. The community support hubs that they have are 100% community led, volunteer supply collections, conducting all of these coordinations on their own. They feel like the government doesn't care about them. And that's a horrible disservice to people who have gone through a kind of loss that we can't even imagine.
There you have it, folks. Pray for the people in Maui. 3 months before the Maui wildfires, there's an interesting story that aired on civilbeat.org. Maui's zoning is more than 60 years old. Where's the update? Property owners and government officials are stuck in a continued state of confusion and conflicting interpretations and complex layers of administration. So that aired in Civil Beat. They're upset that Maui County got all the way from the 1960s without a say. They got away with it. They got away with it from the 1960s. They haven't had a serious update or a revamp of their zoning codes. So they're all scratching their heads. How could it be that these people are able to live on these beachfront properties? How can it be that the same families are allowed to live in this area? How can it be that these people were able to retain their property, even though those property values have gone up so much? Then suddenly, a fire burst through, reduces this beautiful, probably one of the most beautiful places in the nation, probably one of the most beautiful places on earth. It reduces it to nothing but cinders, ashes. People are sifting through the ashes. The insurance companies, they say that they're not going to be able to cover it. The power company was told to not keep those power lines electrified, but they ignored that. There's a class action lawsuit against that power company, Hawaii Energy. Something doesn't add up. And then here's the kicker. Now the governor of Hawaii is working to acquire the land. They were big mad about this zoning code not being changed. It's been there since the 1960s. And just a few months ago, they were making a big old fuss in the media about how the zoning code needs to be changed. And then this fire happens. Now the state is looking to acquire that land. Joe Biden, he flew to Milwaukee. He flew right over East Palestine, Ohio. He didn't stop there, and he certainly didn't fly to Hawaii. Now he is saying that he's going to visit Hawaii on Monday, but the residents, they said, nah, we don't want you, Joe. We don't want you. Stay on vacation wherever you're at, the beach in Delaware. Just stay there. We don't want you here. Let's take a listen to Joe Biden in Milwaukee. He didn't talk with the Milwaukee people either about anything important. He didn't address the crime issues that they've got going on there. He didn't go there because a kid in Wisconsin was told that he couldn't read his Bible on the sidewalk. No. He didn't talk about important issues. He went there, I'm sure, to talk about Bidenomics, whatever that means. And he went there to talk about climate change, I'm sure. Let's take a listen here to Joe.
My wife Jill and I are going to travel to Hawaii as soon as we can. That's what I've been talking to the governor about. I don't want to get in the way. I've been to too many disaster areas, but I want to go make sure we got everything they need. My wife Jill and I are going to travel to Hawaii as soon as we
can. You didn't go to East Palestine, Ohio to address the train derailment where people were literally talking like this. I can't talk. The chemicals from the train. They've destroyed my windpipes. I can't even talk anymore. He didn't go to East Palestine, Ohio. And then he gets out there and he lies. This did not happen. He talks about how he watched the Pittsburgh Bridge collapse. That's just not true. It's one of these Joe Bidenisms where he says, oh, yeah, I can relate to you. And, oh, I've been there. No, Joe, you haven't. This did not happen.
By the way, the Pittsburgh is a city of bridges, more bridges in Pittsburgh than any other city in America. I watched that bridge collapse. I got there and saw it collapse with over 200 feet off the ground going over a valley.
That's true.
It collapsed. Thank God school was out.
That's not true. That's not true. None of that's true. He did not go there and watch that bridge collapse. We've got so much to talk about here on the Morning Buzz. I'm Kat Peterson. As always, I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. You can subscribe to my channel at Kat Peterson 929. That'd be great if you did that today. We're going to talk about creepy Joe Biden because he's striking again. Joe Biden, he tells this whole group of children that he knows where to get some really great ice cream, and he knows some really great ice cream places. And he says that daddy owes them some ice cream. I can't. Okay. So we are going to be getting to that. Plus, news reports about an old man arrested for inappropriately touching a little girl. This is really funny. It's gone viral. The local news program, they were talking about this pedophile, and they allegedly accidentally. I don't know if it was on accident or not. Maybe the guy in the control room was just sick and tired of Joe Biden's crap, and he decided to flash Joe Biden's picture up there when they were talking about the old man being arrested for inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl, and they accidentally put up Joe Biden's picture when they were talking about that story. Somebody got fired, I'm sure, but this video has been going viral, and I think it's really funny that it's going viral at the same time creepy Joe Biden is striking again, telling children that daddy's going to go get some ice cream for them. Also, an update for you. I know I got a couple of messages yesterday. You were like, where's the Glenn Beck podcasts? Where are they at? I usually get it from iTunes. Well, Apple removed all of Glenn Beck's podcasts from iTunes, but they have restored his podcast. So, big tech censorship. Does it ever stop? All of this and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. Now, before we get into the national stories today, there's a few local things I want to hit. This was brought to my attention yesterday. This woman, Carla Campbell Jackson, she's always out there, and it was really disturbing. I forget what it was. It might have been the 4th of July parade. I think that's what it was. It was a 4th of July parade, and it was really disturbing to watch these 9-year-old Black students, children, screaming out things like "we're oppressed" and "no peace, no," or something like some sort of "no peace, no." I don't even know. It was the NAACP, and they were marching in the 4th of July parade, and we were right in front of them. And I just wanted to scream at the sky because I was like, "Look at these poor little children! You're creating activists out of children. They should be." This is the 4th of July. They should be hanging out with their friends at the swimming pool or squirting people with squirt guns in the 4th of July parade, or, literally anything else besides raising their fists in the air in solidarity against racism. These are children. These are concepts that are way too vast for their understanding at that age. At 7 years old, 8 years old, I was watching these kids screaming about racism. Anyway, so Carla Campbell Jackson. I didn't know this was a story. Somebody brought it to my attention. She's a leader with the Bloomington Normal NAACP, and she accused State Farm of retaliation and discrimination based on race, on the basis of race. And the court recently, just this August 11th, the court documents dropped. That's when they were published, and it shows that she did not have any kind of evidence at all to support her claims. And my question now is, where's the media on this? Because at the time, we've got NPR, we've got the Sun Times, the Chicago Sun Times picking this all up, and they're like, racism? She got fired because of racism? Well, it turns out that's not true. And when you read the court documents, it says that that's not true. She didn't have sufficient evidence to support her claims, but it gets even crazier. Okay, so the case involves Carla Campbell Jackson, and the court documents say that she didn't have evidence, but she made the allegation back in 2016, May 2016. At the time, Carla Campbell Jackson, she worked as a claims section manager for State Farm in Michigan. In February of 2019, fast forward 3 years, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, so this is a federal agency, issued a determination of reasonable cause for Carla Campbell Jackson's claims. So they said that, hey, you might actually have a case here. That's what the EEOC records indicated. They also show that State Farm refused to settle out the matter. They were looking, this federal agency was trying to get near $500,000 in back pay and damages for Carla Campbell Jackson. They also wanted to re-educate 10 State Farm employees through their diversity training or whatever. So this was interesting. At the time, in 2016, there was an email, I suppose, and this is the only evidence she had. There were multiple instances that she talked about racism. None of them I really thought was like a direct act of racism towards her. But I'm only bringing up 2 instances here because these are concrete examples that she brought. Other things were like, oh, well, she said, he said kind of thing. But these are only the concrete examples that I am willing to talk about because this is the court, this is evidence. And she suggested that the meme and that this letter that contained racist things in there was the evidence she needed to say that the company State Farm retaliated against her and fired her because of racism, on the basis of racism. So there was an email, I guess, that was sent out. It was a racist meme, but this was sent out to 50,000 State Farm employees. And it was not just sent to Carla Campbell Jackson. Carla Campbell Jackson, being an activist, decided to report this email to the State Farm Human Resources representative, and the representative responded that the company was already made aware of the concerns about the email and that they were investigating who might have sent it. So you can't control everybody's little action. Okay, this wasn't a direct email addressed to you. This was sent to 50,000 State Farm employees. And if somebody sends a rogue racist meme, which I didn't even get into what the meme actually was, I didn't even bother reading what the meme was. It's a meme. I don't know what it was. I have no idea. But it was sent to 50,000 people. This wasn't directed towards her, clearly. And she was told by the human resources representative, hey, we're working on it. We're trying to find out who sent it. So if you ask me, State Farm wasn't being racist. They were actively trying to, they had some due diligence and they were trying to find the guy who sent the so-called racist meme. On April 25th and 26th of 2016, Carla Campbell Jackson, she told her manager and the vice president of operations for human resources, Rich Garcia, about a racist letter that she and several other State Farm employees had received. So again, this is an example of somebody sending a letter. Now, I did read the letter. The letter had some crazy things in it, like, quote, the silent majority is been waiting 10 years, and finally the tables have turned on the minorities, and the silent majority can speak out again. So that was and there was more in that letter. And yes, the letter was distasteful and very racist. But you can't stop wackos from sending letters to people. Okay. That's just the way it goes. If I tried to go after like my company, that's like me going after Great Plains Media because somebody sent me hate mail. Like, and it's actually addressed to me specifically. That's the thing. It's addressed to me specifically, but that's like me going against my employer because somebody sent me hate mail addressed to me. But this letter wasn't even addressed to her. It was addressed to multiple people in the State Farm building. So, like, you can't claim racism specifically against you because that's what the court documents say. It says Carla Campbell Jackson, not like a coalition of State Farm employees going after State Farm because of racism. It's her. She's saying that they retaliated against her because of racism. So she brought she being an activist, decided to go around and collect all of these letters that were sent to State Farm employees. And the guy, the VP of Human Resources, he spoke with her about the letters and how she was collecting them. And he said, look, you cannot be doing that. That's not your job. These letters were addressed to State Farm, not Campbell Jackson. It wasn't addressed to you. I don't need you going around there opposing these letters to people or sharing these letters with people. So Garcia is trained, obviously, in human resources, and he's trying to do his job, and he's trying to say, hey, this is my job. Like, let me handle it. So he coordinated a response to the April 25th letter and released that response on April 26th, a day after that letter was sent out. It wasn't like State Farm slept on it, okay? They were investigating the letter, and they were trying to figure out who sent that letter. So in the case, the court documents, it shows that State Farm argued that she needed to show proof that they lacked diligence on their part and that there was prejudice to the party asserting the defense was racist. So, like, you need to prove that they were racist to you, Carla. Like, she's suing State Farm for some sort of letter that was sent to State Farm employees by some sort of wacko. Like, you can't blame State Farm. I just don't understand. But it's called no accountability. And here's the true reason why she got fired. According to court documents, she sent 4,700 emails in a 17-month period that appeared to be non-business related correspondence. I don't send anything from my business email that is not business related. I think that goes without saying, especially when you work in things like claims insurance and things that could have confidential information in it. And according to court documents, some of these emails did have confidential information that was specific for State Farm. And when you're working with people's insurance, you don't send personal emails from your business email. Okay, it's wrong. And she even admitted that. She apologized, and she did admit that her communications, where she was trying to coordinate a family reunion and events involving her church, were personal in nature. But she knew that other employees who used their email for non-business reasons. So she was trying to say that she was fired because of her race, but she could not prove that. They fired her because she was using her email for inappropriate personal purposes. Okay. And there's just the lack of accountability is almost hysterical. That's my take on it. All right. We're going to be back. My question is now, where's the Chicago Sun-Times? Are they going to talk about how the case was thrown out and how she used her personal email near 5,000 times for personal non-related business reasons? Are they going to talk about the true reason why she was fired? No, don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Chicago Sun-Times, where are you at, bro? All right, I'm going to be back. We've got a lot to get through today. Be sure to text in 309-451-9299. You can also comment on the YouTube channel, Twitter, Rumble, Facebook, and subscribe to Cat Peterson 929. Where's the media? Where's the media when it comes to that kind of stuff? Of course, they're absolutely nowhere. Not shocked by that. Carla Campbell Jackson. I mean, come on. Like, you're sending personal emails and then you're going to turn around and say that it's because of racism why you got fired. There's near 5,000 emails. Now, I get it. Maybe 2, 3, 4 emails that were sent from your business, and maybe you could chalk that up to, oh shoot, I didn't switch accounts. I've done that maybe once, twice. I don't even think I've done it once, to be honest with you. Sending a personal email. I'm very careful about that. And I mean, I work for a media company. I mean, it's not as big as State Farm. I'm not handling people's insurance claims, uh, things that are confidential. So, yeah, I I don't know. It's just the lack of accountability for me. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Let's get to Jacqueline's comment. What a piece of crap he is. He stood there touting his disgusting lie of Bidenomics. How stupid is his the $1 trillion or so? Oh, his 1,000 or so. Yeah, fake number. Legal, legitimate. Yeah. You mean to tell me that Joe Biden got 81 million votes? I don't think so. uh, so we are going to be getting to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, creepy Joe telling a group of kids that he knows of really great ice cream places and that he owes them some ice cream. Bizarre. Just a very bizarre man. And, I think it's funny that we've got news reports now, or a news report that's going viral. It was from 2022, when Joe Biden was going to give his State of the Union address. And this local news organization, probably like ABC7, something like that, they were doing stories, and the news anchor was talking about this guy, an old man who was arrested for inappropriately touching a little girl. And then all of a sudden, the graphics people in the back. So I used to intern for a TV station. The way it kind of goes, you've got a line of people who do graphics, you've got people who work the mics, the sound, the board, the switcher for the cameras, right? You've got all kinds of people working for that. And then you've got a director, then you've got the anchors out there in the green room. And I'm sure somebody who was doing graphics that day screwed up, and they put Joe Biden in where the news story was supposed to be about the 71-year-old dude touching this little girl. And they accidentally show a picture of Joe Biden when they're talking about this 71-year-old dude who inappropriately touched this girl. And I don't know, maybe it was an accident, maybe it wasn't. But either way, it's hilarious and it's going viral again. Joe Biden is creepy. I've got a lot of local things I really want to hit today. So bear with me. I know a lot of you, every time I do local, you guys are like, Cat, don't do local. And it's like, but this is the stuff that truly matters, and things that you can change. Uh, we can't change that Joe Biden is a fumbling, bumbling idiot. We are just going to have to wait until 2024 when he's on the ballot again and not vote for him again. But this story is something close to my heart, because I've got an issue locally where I'm from, going on, where this local fire department, it's a volunteer fire department, love those guys. And They are experiencing this very hostile takeover of the volunteer fire department from the Braidwood Fire Department. Love the Braidwood Fire Department guys too. Nothing wrong with them. Um, but it's a hostile takeover, and I guarantee you it's coming from the top down. Okay, so the Braidwood firefighters, they're just doing what they're told. It's not them doing it, it's administration, and it's these government acolytes, it's these so-called representatives doing it. And we're starting to see this throughout the country. So there's this little Minnesota town, and this police chief gets out there and he's speaking before the council, and he says, "Look, I have to resign." And I've talked with the sheriff here. I've talked with Matt Lane about these deputies and how they aren't able to get deputies. They're recruiting, right? And they're trying to recruit, but it's hard because um, they're not paid as much as, say, an Illinois State police officer or even a Bloomington police officer. They're paid more. And uh, what's happening is we're starting to see these smaller volunteer sheriff's offices, volunteer firefighters, these fire departments, they're closing up shop. And there's a lot of moving parts to this. Tom Bennett, a senator, is a part of one of these bipartisan. And I'm not blaming Tom Bennett. I'm not, maybe he doesn't know or didn't think about it this way. I'm thinking about it this way. It's this bipartisan legislation signed by Republicans and Democrats that gives money to volunteer firefighters. And you're like, Kat, what's wrong with that? The government is giving away pennies to these volunteer firefighters. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not very all that much money. And why? It's because they're trying to figure out how big these volunteer fire department or these fire departments are. They're wanting to consolidate and centralize uh, fire departments and law enforcement. So I'm going to be back. Hold on. Morning. Wow. This is concerning. And, I know people are like, Kat, I hate when you talk about local stuff, but this is important. And this is something that you can change in your community if you raise awareness about it. And I'm excited to bring you this story this morning on the Morning Buzz, 6:33 a.m. And it's kind of like a national story as well. So we've got all across the nation, police forces, volunteer police departments, volunteer firefighters, their departments are closing up shop. And there's a reason for that. So, an entire police force had to resign in this small Minnesota town. And the police chief, he gets out there before the city council and he said that it's because of low compensation. I've talked with Sheriff Matt Lane here before, and he's talked with me about how it's hard to keep deputies or recruit deputies because the Illinois State Police, they offer higher wages, they offer more money. The city of Bloomington, they offer more money, and these bigger departments are poaching smaller deputies or smaller sheriff's offices, their law enforcement. So I'm going to quote the Minnesota police chief who recently resigned in this small town. He says, right now at $22 an hour, you're never going to see another person again. So he's citing this low compensation. Now, I want to get into the story and just keep an open mind. Um, an entire police force resigned this past week in that small town. It's the small town of Goodhue, and the population is about 1,200 people. And the Goodhue police chief, his name is Josh Smith. He resigned, and then after his resignation, there was a full-time police officer that resigned again, and then 5 working part-time police officers got up before the city council and they all resigned. So an entire police crew just resigned before the city council. And Chief Smith said that they're leaving because of compensation. And He says, at $22 an hour, it's just not we're not able to do it. Other police departments have been offering to pay things like $30 an hour or more. So, and sign-on bonuses. I know the Illinois State Police, they do all kinds of sign-on bonuses, and they provide other incentives for recruitment. But those incentives and sign-on bonuses are absent from a lot of these cities' police departments, these smaller towns. And despite a 5% raise earlier in that year, the officers and for the officers, and then a $13,000 raise for uh, Smith for the police chief, their pay was still lower than comparable towns. So he says the harsh reality is, I don't want to be a guy working 80 hours a week, just running this police department, being on call 24 hours a day, which I already am, and leaving no time for my family. That's what Smith told the council. But we're starting to see this in all kinds of places. Okay. Goodhue County Sheriff's Office, they said that they're scrambling really for a plan to get some additional law enforcement. They spoke to the Goodhue County Sheriff's Office to try to get some more help out there in that small town. But like I said, it's everywhere. There was one in Missouri, a small town, for similar reasons. In 2021, they closed up. North Carolina, there was a small town where they were forced to quit, and they cited a hostile work environment after a new town manager came on board. So there is an attack on volunteer police departments and smaller police departments in these small communities. They're not going to exist. And I'm going to bring up my hometown. Custer Park Fire Department is seeing a hostile takeover from a bigger department, Braidwood Fire Department. Love all of the guys on the fire department. I love the firefighters, not ripping on any of them, but I want to point this out. The Safety Act, and this is a push by the Democrats, and people don't see that because they get caught up in the emotionalism of it. They'll get caught up in, well, Custer Park Fire, their response times are low and blah, blah, blah. And that might be true, but the answer is not more government. The answer is not centralizing and consolidating our fire departments. We need volunteer fire departments. We need volunteer police departments, volunteer sheriff's offices. The Safety Act pretty much made it impossible for volunteer sheriff's offices to exist. They said that the sheriff's offices, these volunteers, they're going to have to participate in some sort of training. Financially, they cut their tax base because they get a little bit of tax money if you're a volunteer police department or a volunteer sheriff's office. So the Safety Act makes it pretty much impossible for these guys to exist. Right now, there's an Illinois bill, bipartisan, and it recently gave out small grants. I think like $500 maybe per person to these to these volunteer fire departments. This is the playbook by the Uniparty. Whenever I see bipartisan legislation, my eyebrows go up, and I'm like, okay, well, what are they trying to do here? Because we shouldn't be agreeing with Democrats on anything in the state of Illinois. They have the supermajority. And if you sign anything, if you're a legislator who signs something with a Democrat, you're weak. And, these Republicans, they get duped. $500, it's measly. What they're really trying to do is they're trying to see how many of these volunteers are in these small towns. And if they're small enough, they get with their city administrators, their administration, this administrative bloat, and they start talking with these cities on how they can consolidate and get rid of these volunteer fire departments or volunteer sheriff's offices and things. So Custer Park Fire, I did some research. They get about $240,000 in taxpayer money for the entire department. But Chris over there, the fire chief, the Braidwood fire chief, he's getting about, and he just recently got a raise, $110,000 a year. Administrative bloat is a symptom of big centralized police and fire. So be on the lookout. The point of this story is be on the lookout. Colfax, Anchor, Leroy, Lexington, if you guys have volunteer fire departments, my recommendation, and I can't tell you what to do, is not to apply for, ironically, these safer grants. That's what they're called. And Republicans, they were like touting, yes, we're funding the volunteer fire departments. I'd be on the lookout because I think that um, they're trying to see how many volunteers are out there because it's something that they can't control. And they don't like volunteer sheriff's offices. They don't like volunteer fire departments. And my recommendation is that you get the community together. You get the community together and you start making donations because you best believe that in these hostile takeovers where bigger cities are in consolidating these smaller fire departments, these volunteer fire departments, in these situations, they are going to raise your taxes anyway. They're going to say, well, we took on the Custer Park Fire Department. This is like a city or a small little town up north, about an hour. That's where I'm from. And what they're going to start doing is they're going to start raising taxes because they're like, well, we had to consolidate and we brought on a whole nother team and we have to maintain all of these different fire trucks that we have acquired. So they're going to raise your taxes anyway. So if you live in one of these smaller towns, you need to get ahead of this and you need to support volunteer firefighters and police officers. Government firefighters, government police officers, they are volatile. And I am not ripping on police officers. I'm not ripping on firefighters, but there are things called city administrators, and those city administrators sign the checks that these officers get. Okay, so who are you going to listen to? The people who sign your check? Yes. So if I were you, what I would do is support your local firefighters, your volunteer, keyword volunteer firefighters, the people who are not beholden to the government. Because this push to centralize police and centralize fire, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I don't like these safer grants. I get it. You want the money. Try to get donations instead. Anytime you get that grant money from that government, there's a catch. And the catch here, I believe, is that they are trying to figure out how many volunteers you've got at your fire department. And then they're going to get with their city administrators in these bigger departments and try to take over your department if it's small enough. All right. I'll be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We're going to be back talking a little bit about Joe Biden and him touching children. No, him being disgusting and being creepy, but also I've got a few other things. Maui, what's concerning to me is that the insurance companies are not saying, like, yes, we're going to cover this. I've also seen some things where the locals said that their water didn't work at the time of the fire, like their water was completely shut off. The power company was told by weather services to de-electrify their power lines, and they didn't do that. And not to mention that there was a 60-year-old zoning code that the Maui County, or that these government officials didn't like, and they wanted to update the zoning code. And 3 months prior to this fire breaking out, civilbeat.org, they came out with some sort of piece where, they were advocating for the zoning code change. And now we've got the Hawaii governor looking to acquire the land in Maui. Joe Biden says he's going to go there Monday. But the people of Maui, they definitely don't want him there. They've said that, the residents, much like the people of East Palestine, Ohio. It's too late, Joe. So go ahead, smash that like button. Let's get to this comment. I don't understand why anyone would hate when you talk about anything local. Yeah, people don't like when I talk local because it's too real for them. And that's what I really think it is. People get big upset when I talk anything local because and I see it from Republicans, Democrats, left, right. It doesn't matter. People just get upset over it because it's so close to home, and people want to live in this fantasy world where, oh, we can just, get angry about things, but we don't actually have to do anything. Um, so me getting behind this microphone and telling you that, hey, you need to make a donation to your volunteer fire department because these fire departments are being poached essentially by big government, and that's too real. And then it raises all kinds of questions like, well, why are they poaching these fire departments? Why don't they want volunteer fire departments to exist? Why don't they want volunteer sheriff's offices to exist? Then the answer to that question is really scary. Now there might be different answers to that question. The blanket answer that I'm going to give is that the government does not have control over these volunteer fire departments, and they're not signing the checks of these firefighters. And these firefighters actually care about you because they're your neighbors and they're your friends, and you pay them directly via donations. And yeah, my recommendation to anybody who has a volunteer, I don't have a volunteer fire department here in Normal. I am going to make a donation to my Custer Park Fire Department where my parents live. Um, I'm going to wait to see if they get engulfed because I don't want that money going to Braidwood. But um, yeah, it's too real. I think that's why, Jacqueline, people don't like it when I talk about local things because it's too real for them. We're going to be back in just a little bit. Smash that like button and share this out with your normie friends. To every politician and Hollywood actor that virtue signaled their visit to Kiev with Zelensky, I better see you visiting the American war zone in Hawaii. These people deserve a whole lot more than no comment. They deserve more, Joe. So Joe says that he's going there on Monday. Okay, Joe. Okay. Joe says he's going there Monday. The people of Hawaii really, they have no interest in Joe Biden going to Hawaii. I mean, the damage is done. He hasn't really done anything for them other than these $700 measly checks, and I don't even really understand. Cash at this point, I don't think is really going to help them. What logically, right? I'm just thinking about this. Like, there's no grocery stores, there's no food, they can't go to the grocery store. What are they going to spend the money on? And not to mention, it's super costly to live in Hawaii, and $700 is not going to go very, very far in a household. So this is $700 per household. You look at the numbers behind this thing. The Ukraine has gotten so much money. It's $2,500 per person, and he's given $113 billion overall just this past week, $200 million. When you look at the $700 per household payments to the people of Maui, uh, that you calculate that out, it's like 1.9 million. So it's $2 million that he's given in total to the people of Maui. And I don't like what's going on in Maui. Something doesn't smell right. I don't like it. The state is looking to acquire the land. 3 months ago, there was a story that was published in civilbeat.org about the zoning code and how they really wanted to change the zoning code uh, because the zoning code was 60 years old. And then you look at the power company, Hawaii Energy, and how they were told very, very blatantly by weather services around the island, hey, de-electrify those power lines. We're getting high winds. This is going to cause a fire. They didn't do it. So I don't like the smell. It doesn't pass the sniff test. Joe Biden, speaking about sniffing children again. No, actually, he was just caught telling children that he knows some really great places to get ice cream and that daddy owes them and that he's going to take them out for ice cream. Very bizarre. Very weird. Uh, so we're going to play those comments. Apple removing all of Glenn Beck's podcasts from iTunes. And then they restored them finally. So I've got an update for you. Yes, they did restore Glenn Beck's podcast, but like, why did you take them down in the first place? We're going to get to all of that here on the Morning Buzz. Plus, did you hear? It's not a tank, but it definitely looks like a tank. I'm just going to be honest with you. The Bloomington police, they've acquired this SWAT vehicle. And the concerns from the community, they're afraid that the city is militarizing their police force by adding this vehicle to the city's fleet here. So they purchased this Bearcat rescue vehicle. And I'm just going to be honest, it does look like a tank, but they say it's not a tank. There was a comment made by D. Urban in the council meeting that was like, what? I'm going to talk about that here next on the Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I was all kind of for the SWAT team because I thought that the sheriff's office was going to take the lead on that, but now we've got the city of Bloomington taking the lead on that, and I'm not too sure how I feel about it anymore. This SWAT team, especially considering the Safety Act. It was upheld. We're no longer in the same place we were just a couple of months ago. The Safety Act was upheld by the Supreme Court. It's going to be enacted in just a couple of months. Our courts have been given a couple of months to transition to no cash bail. And I mean, at this point, like, what is it going to be for? Because the Safety Act pretty much affords all criminals to be out on bail, be out and no cash bail, and you can't hold them. So I don't know. And then the Illinois Supreme Court, I know it's going to go to federal court, but the Illinois Supreme Court upheld that we can't have um, higher capacity firearms with like 17 rounds in them. We can't have those. So we're in a much different place in the state of Illinois when it comes to uh, a very real threat that our police force is being militarized against us. And um, I'm pro police. I back the blue. However, that doesn't stop the city administration. It doesn't stop the city officials. These people who make a lot of money from doing what the Democrats want, which is, hey, we are pro criminal and anti citizen. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We're pro criminal, we're anti citizen. So, this Bearcat thing, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I don't think it makes me feel safer. Just knowing the state and knowing that the Safety Act is out there. What are you going to do? Because the Safety Act pretty much affords criminals the opportunity to be out whenever. And they say that they're going to use this against criminals, but are they? Are they? And D. Urban, she made this comment. And I feel like had she not made this comment, it wouldn't have really been a concern for me. But she came out and she goes, she says this. She said she felt that she needed to caution people against thinking the vehicle was knocking down the door and trampling over people's rights of any kind, or any kind of thing like that. So she wanted to caution people against thinking that. And it's like, well, yeah. I would hope not. And I don't know if that really needed to be said, but she said it, and that makes me concerned. You know what I mean? Smash the like button if I'm making any kind of sense. But I'm going to share this picture with you of the not tank. And you can read the story on Cities 92.9. But here it is. That's what Bloomington is probably going to be getting for over $200,000. That's what they approved that purchase. And I'm just going to be straight with you. I just don't know if I like it so much. I just don't know. So we're going to talk about that a bit. Plus, we're going to get to Joe Biden here. I know you guys are excited about Joe and the creepiness. And there is this video going viral again. It's of a 2022 clip, but the deity or deities of content are blessing us with this content today from Joe Biden, or from this local news station. So I'm going to get to that story here in just a bit. Stop that. Stop that. It's not a tank. It's not a tank. Although it kind of looks like a tank, it's not a tank. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. Yeah, so Bloomington, I don't know how I feel about this. I was originally for the SWAT team because I thought the sheriff's office was behind it and they were going to take the lead on this. But I don't know if Bloomington is now taking the lead on this, but they approved a purchase of one of these Bearcat rescue vehicles. And I don't like what D. Urban said because she kind of cautioned people. This is what she said. She felt the need to caution people against thinking the vehicle was going to go down or go knocking down doors and trampling over people's rights or anything like that. So she cautioned people thinking that the vehicle is going to be doing that and that the police are going to be doing that with this vehicle. It's like, yeah, I don't think that needed to be said. But now that you mention it, I am kind of worried about it, you know? And I was like, yeah, I would hope not. I'm going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Be sure to text in at 309-451-9299. I don't know. Your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that the Bearcat vehicle purchase was a good idea? Throw it in the comments section. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We're going to be back in just a little bit. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Hi, it's your U.S. government. Please stop sharing the videos of Maui being on fire. Please stop talking about Maui. Stop talking about how Joe Biden won't go visit them. Please stop talking about it. Just pay attention to the aliens. We want you to pay attention to the aliens. Stop talking about how the power company didn't shut off the power lines when they knew that there was going to be high winds. Stop talking about how the state is going to be acquiring the land now. Stop talking about how all of the mansions, including Oprah's, didn't have a blade of grass singed. Stop talking about how there was a zoning code that they didn't like. That was 60 years old and that they were looking to update it. Stop. Stop talking about it. This is the U.S. government. Please pay attention to the aliens. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Yes, Joe Biden. I like this text, and you can always text in, be a part of the show. I wonder if Joe Biden will now go to Maui and tell the people of Maui that he knows how they feel because his son died in the wildfires in Hawaii, too. Yeah, he's supposed to go there Monday, but the Hawaii residents, they're already talking. The locals there, they say that they don't want Joe to visit them because he hasn't done anything for them. Now, that's not to say that local people aren't doing things. Even here in Illinois, there was this Northern Illinois food bank. And, it's always great to see people respond to crises in this way. And it just reminds you that Jesus is king and there's good Christian people out there. And there's true humanitarians. There's tens of thousands of pounds of food headed to Maui, courtesy of the Northern Illinois Food Bank. Now, Aldi, they donated 22 million pounds of food to that food bank to provide meals for when crises strike. So that is something that I think people of Maui would need. I don't know because I'm not there. I can just see what people are talking about locally on Twitter. The locals there, I mean, they've been talking, and $700 per household is not going to cut it. They don't really need cash right now. They need food. They need water. They're bathing their children in water bottles because the water is contaminated and unsafe. So, Joe, your $1.9 million total in these $700 payments per household, it's nothing, especially when you compare it to what you've been given to Ukraine. 200 million just this past week, 113 billion overall. You calculate that out, that's $2,500 per Ukrainian. And yeah, they're not American. These people in Maui are American. So pray for the people of Maui. We are getting to Joe Biden and how he said something very gross. He tells this group of children that he knows of some really great ice cream places and that daddy owes them ice cream. Yes. And I wish I was kidding. I'm not. And that brings me to this. There's these news reports about an old man getting arrested for inappropriately touching a young girl. And this local news TV station, they're doing the story, they're doing the bit on air, and then accidentally, the local news station, they show a picture of Joe Biden. Now, this happened back in 2022, but it's gone viral again, and I thought that was pretty funny because of the whole ice cream thing that just happened. So, yeah, I don't know if it happened on accident or not. Maybe the graphics guy in the control room was like, I've had enough of Joe Biden's crap. I'm out of here anyway. I'm quitting. This is me quitting. And I'm putting Joe Biden up on the screen when you guys talk about this old dude being arrested for inappropriately touching a girl. So I also want to talk about Glenn Beck. His podcasts are now up. I had a few messages. Hey, Kat, where's Glenn Beck's podcasts? I'd like to, watch his show a little bit, or I like to listen to his show a little bit later on iTunes. It's gone. Glenn Beck, you can hear on Cities 92.9 at 9 a.m. That's right after this show. Glenn Beck, he's being censored by big tech. Does big tech ever stop censorship? No, they don't. That's their whole reason to exist. That's their whole existence. So we're going to get to it. They have been restored, but Apple removed them because there was an issue with the podcast. We'll get to that here in just a second. Creepy Joe Biden did not fail to uphold his nickname's reputation as he spoke to a crowd of children, telling them that he knows of some really great ice cream places and to talk to him afterwards about the ice cream places. So the curious remarks, these are very curious remarks, were during a briefing Biden delivered on the anniversary of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. And I like what JFK said about inflation. People are struggling. I went to the grocery store yesterday. I got like 3 things, cost me $50. Ridiculous. Gas prices, they're soaring. I think the most expensive gas in Illinois right now is like $5.29. The cheapest is $3.37. Average is around $4 and something cents. And the gas prices are rising. And what people are doing, I know this because I'm doing it, right? You put it on the credit card and then you look at the interest rates and it's at like 22%. This is like loan sharking, or like this is they know that they're going to be getting money because you're putting things on credit because you are broke because you can't afford living in Bidenflation. You can't afford this. So anyway, he was giving a briefing about Inflation Reduction Act and how it's a year old. Let's take a listen to Joe Biden.
And I want to say one thing to your children. I know some really great ice cream places around here, and Daddy owes you. Okay? So talk to me afterwards.
Oh.
Folks, thanks. And I want to say one thing to your children. I know some really great ice cream places around here, and Daddy owes you. Okay? So talk to me afterwards. Folks, thanks. And I want to say one thing.
Okay. All right. It's gone. Don't worry. We're not playing that anymore. The woman, you guys can't see it. If you're on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, you can see Joe Biden being creepy. But there's a woman in the background, and she's to Biden's right, and she's wearing this white shirt, and she looks around the room after Joe Biden said, "Daddy owes you." She was like looking around the room. She's like, "Is anybody hearing this? Or is it just me? Do you guys hear this guy? What? Why is he addressing the children at all? Stop." Joe Biden is no stranger to controversy surrounding his conduct with children. Most recently, there was some backlash because Joe Biden, back in July, nibbled on the shoulder of a little girl in Finland. Yes. So, aside from his interactions in public, Joe Biden also has been accused in a diary entry written by his own daughter, Ashley, of taking showers with her at a very young age that were probably not appropriate. And I'm quoting Ashley there. So, in this allegedly, this alleged journal entry from January 2019, Ashley Biden wrote, quote, "I have always been boy crazy, hypersexualized at a young age. I remember somewhat being sexualized with a family member. I remember having sex with friends at a young age. Showers with my dad, probably not appropriate." So this is a diary entry from Ashley Biden. Uh-oh. That brings me to this story. Kind of funny. This 71-year-old man, he's being accused of inappropriately touching this 12-year-old girl at a Walmart. Sicko, scumbag. You have no place on planet Earth. I'm sorry. But this is a totally unrelated story. 78-year-old Joe Biden is said to give his State of the Union address. Okay, so this is from 2022. This news story that was given by a local or like a TV station, a local news network. And a graphics editor at this local news network is probably unemployed after confusing these two stories: Joe Biden giving his address and the 71-year-old man inappropriately touching a girl at a Walmart. So the anchor was about to tell the first story about the 71-year-old man inappropriately touching this 12-year-old girl. But then, get this, the graphic about Joe Biden's the State of the Union address The graphic about his State of the Union address flashed up on the screen while she was giving the story about the 71-year-old man inappropriately touching the girl. Well, we'll get to why this is so funny and how this is the best mistake in local news history. But I want to play the report for you, and I want to make sure this is a disclaimer. I'm confident that this is legit, but I've been fooled in the past with viral videos. It's gone viral again. Apparently, this is a clip from 2022 when Joe Biden was going to give his State of the Union address. But here's what the local news sounded like when they were giving the report, and the graphic of Joe Biden pops up. Here we go.
It's not clear what may have been taken, and no arrests have been made.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at the Walmart in West Mifflin Sunday afternoon.
Then Joe Biden's picture pops
It's
up.
not clear what may
Joe
have been
Biden's
taken,
picture pops
and
up
no
when she's
arrests have
talking about this story. I think it's hilarious. The look on the anchor's face is what makes this content 10 out of 10. You guys have to go watch the video. I wish you could see it on the YouTube channel. If you were watching via stream, you can see it there. Cat Peterson 929. Now, I don't know if this was an accident. I don't know if this was an accident. The only thing that could have made this better was that if they were to roll like B-roll footage of this 80-year-old man, Joe Biden, actually inappropriately touching some young girls and nibbling on them even. So it was an accident, probably. I don't know. The graphic editor had probably decided, if it wasn't an accident, he probably decided he was tired of Joe Biden's crap. And, this slip up was his way of saying, I'm out of here, y'all. I quit. And then he puts on his Trump 2024 hat. And then he goes flipping them all off. And then, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. If I worked at a local news station, I probably would have thrown up the graphic of Joe Biden too. But I think it's the funniest mistake ever. And look, Joe Biden, he's got a problem. He has a very tough time around little girls when their shampoo smells like raspberries or something, and he just has to sniff their little heads. He can't help it. I'll never forget when he came out and said this. You won't believe it. Joe Biden actually looking at this little girl in the audience, and this little girl is the daughter of a veteran. And well, you know what? What I'm gonna do is just have you listen to it. Here we go. Oh no. Here we go. Ah, so in case that was a little hard to hear, Joe Biden put the creep in creepy Joe Biden when he looked at this little girl in the audience. She's a daughter of a veteran, and he said, quote, I love those barrettes in her hair. Man, I tell you what, look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there like a little lady with her legs crossed. This is a young girl, very young. I don't know her exact age. She's not 19. He says she looks like she's 19, sitting there with her little legs crossed. Disgusting, gross, wrong. Glenn Beck posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, that Apple suddenly decided, without any kind of explanation, to restore his previously removed 1,000+ podcast episodes. So 3,000+ podcast episodes. So Glenn Beck, you can hear him on Cities 92.9 at 9 o'clock. Apple suddenly removed his podcasts. We're going to get to that here. I've got to take a quick break. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Be sure to smash the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, just type in Cities 92.9. You can find it.
I've been my soul working all day, overtime hours for both pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul.
There you have it.
Rich men.
This is from Apple. We found an issue with your show, the Glenn Beck program, which must be resolved before it's available on Apple Podcasts.
True is Glenn Beck. His podcasts were taken down from Apple by Apple. He had 3,000 plus podcasts. You can hear Glenn Beck on Cities 92.9 right after the morning buzz with Cam Peterson. And he was suddenly removed for his podcasts. And this is what Apple said. We found an issue with your show, the Glenn Beck program, and which we have to resolve before it's available on Apple Podcast again. Your show has been removed. Let's take a listen to Glenn Beck.
Hey, we're just sitting here in my office, and we're discussing something that we just saw here.
Yeah, the clip is cutting in and out. So what he says, Glenn Beck talks about how he was going to talk about the real crime family. And Beck was supposed to do the rehearsal for that night's podcast episode. And the episode was really important because he was talking about the real crime family. So I'm sure that their producers, and I've seen it, right? They were promoting this podcast. They were going to say that go through the real crime family and what they've done. And Apple came out and they said that there was an issue with his show, and they took down all of his this was them saying, you better watch out. We could deplatform you. We could demonetize you. Does the big tech censorship ever stop? Does it ever stop? Carla Campbell Jackson. This is pretty funny. So she's from the Bloomington Normal NAACP, and she accused State Farm of being racist. And she said that State Farm retaliated against her and discriminated against her on the basis of race. But get this, the court threw out the case and said, Carla, where's the evidence to support this claim? Where is it? And where's the media now? Nowhere. The Chicago Sun-Times, NPR. Where are you guys? Are you guys going to talk about that? How the court, the judge, they threw the case out. She didn't have evidence. She just made that statement. She made it all up. On the other side, this is the buzz. Hey, folks, if you're watching right now, go ahead and smash the like button. Having issues with internet. Some monkey buttons. But thanks so much for watching. Share this out with your friends. Yes, Carla Campbell Jackson. She did, in fact, her case got thrown out. We're going to be talking about that story here coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Next is Scott Robbins with Scott's Takes. you wake up and then there's news about Joe Biden and the Biden crime family, and there's more allegations against them. And then all of a sudden, Trump gets indicted. How does that math check out, Scott Robbins?
Well,
This Seth takes on the morning buzz.
I mean, everybody knows what the deal is, right? You know what the deal is. I mean, this Donald Trump thing is certainly not anything new. You know, I mean, it's they throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, and so far, nothing's stuck, and they'll keep throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks. They don't want him to run. They want to damage him so much that there's no possible way he can win, and actually, they don't want him to run because they feel like, you know, and they should feel like Joe Biden is a mumbling, stumbling mess and not electable for a second term. So who's the guy that's standing in his way? Donald Trump. So what can we do to take him out? I mean, this is unprecedented. You got a guy who's running for president that they're trying to take out through the legal means so he doesn't run against the current president. I mean, but it's been going on for a while now. And the Biden thing gets deeper and deeper. And I was reading this today that Biden, now according to emails, Hunter Biden is claiming that he paid Pops all the bills. I think we kind of already knew this because he was in line for millions of dollars, right? He got his cut of whatever Hunter was dealing. And to help him pay. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you look at this, you say, have you ever helped your parents pay a bill? Well, you haven't yet, Kat. Someday you might. Who knows? I don't know. I have with my mom, you know, but you pay your bill for your parents because you think it's the right thing to do. You got to be helpful. I mean, I wasn't trying to snooker my brother's wife or get blow or hookers or anything like that with the money I was earning.
Yep.
I did it wrong, didn't I? Because I should have been getting the blow and the hookers and, you know.
Yeah, you did it all wrong.
Right, it's all wrong.
What you should be doing with your money.
This guy, I mean, after all, look at this. Biden also yesterday dared an audience member to name one thing that he's not done right, that he hasn't done. And I just play the audio. It's a mess, but here we go.
Name me a single objective we've ever set out to accomplish that we've failed on. Name me one in all of our history. Not one. Name me a single.
I mean, why do you do that? Because you have a bout of senility? I mean, you can't open yourself up like that. Of course, I mean, you can right away look at Afghanistan, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's right there.
East Palestine, Ohio, Maui.
Canceling student debt. I mean, lowering all these things that he's done none of them. It'd be harder to play the game of the things he's failed at because the list is long. But when you make a public proclamation like that, holy smokes, man.
People literally, I'll never forget it, the video footage of people throwing babies by their feet over this barbed wire in Afghanistan to get them out of there.
Oh, yeah.
You had people just tossing children over these massive fences to get them out. People hanging off of planes to get out of there. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, well, no, me either. I mean, of course not. Of course not. It was crazy.
Joe's senile mind. Of course he forgot it. Of course he forgot the withdrawal of Afghanistan and how abysmal it was.
There's a psychologist out there called Diane Erschnalt, director of mental health and chief psychologist at the USCF Children's Hospital. She said, a boy twirled into my office and said to me, you see, I'm a Prius. I'm a boy in the front. I'm a girl in the back.
Oh, boy.
And they think they're dinosaurs. And I mean, it's I'm reading these articles this morning as I'm churning through this stuff. And I'm like, it's insanity.
Yeah. Well, and what really bothers me, I signed a petition yesterday. I think it was. Oh,
did you?
Yeah. So I think I told you about that one woman. She was somewhere. I think it was actually in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, maybe.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
And she goes in to receive cancer treatment from this facility, right? And the cancer treatment facility has this huge transgender flag right there in front of the reception desk, and it's just flying. And she, being a Christian, she took offense to it and she did the proper thing. And she said, hey, I take an issue with this, and I don't see how transgenderism or this flag has anything to do with cancer treatments.
Right.
Why is it there? And they banned her from the hospital and they refused to give her treatment anymore. So she's got a petition out there trying to get some treatment from this hospital again. And she is got a petition. I think it's supposed to like sue them or something like that. So I signed the petition and I was like, this poor woman. And now I think that there was some sort of hospital that was like deemed the best hospital. And now they're not going off of metrics like, hey, you know, we have the lowest mortality rate at this hospital. That's the way they used to determine if you were the best hospital in the nation.
Right.
Now it's diversity, diversity, diversity. How many boxes can you check off to earn the title of the best hospital in the nation? They got rid of the merit-based, like, hey, we have the least amount of people dying in our hospital.
Right.
They got rid of that. And it's like, how many little boys can you tell that they're the dinosaur or that they're a woman or a girl instead of a boy? That's if you have a transgender division in your hospital, then you are good to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't, and again, I mean, I talked about this yesterday with somebody, and if you just leave well, you can't, but when transgender comes into marketing or Pride Month comes into marketing, not everybody agrees with you. I know you want them to, but they don't. And when you take stances like that in commerce, or in this case, the hospital even, name me a successful business that's gone off the far end and has succeeded. Yeah, you can't. So why do they continue to do this?
ESGs, probably.
Right. The virtue signaling points they get from it. And to be known as woke and as the cool kids and all that stuff. But name one that's worked. Bud Light, I mean, one of the Bush family heirs, or one of the kids, I guess, or grandkids or great grandkids in the Bush family, wants to buy the brand back.
Really?
And he's making an attempt right now. And he's serious. They got plenty of dough.
Dang.
That he wants to buy the brand back. He's like, I'm watching this destruct in front of my eyes, and I feel like I got to do something. So he's making a legitimate offer to buy the brand back and try to bring it back to life, breathe life back into it. I mean, the ship may have sailed, but I mean, if you have new ownership and this guy looks in the camera and goes, hey, you know what? We screwed up. We're sorry. We're going to do our level best not to do this again. This wasn't me. If it would have been me, we wouldn't have done this. But again, I mean, he's taking a stand going, it's my family legacy here. And it's been ruined.
With Bud Light, it went too far, Scott. Like, they've always had the rainbow cans and whatever. They've always had that kind of stuff. This was bending the knee to a kink. Dylan Mulvaney has a weird kink where he likes to dress up as a little girl and prance around in leather shorts and sing show tunes about his wiener. Like, that is a kink, and it's weird. And they went way too far. It's one thing to make the cans rainbow. It's a whole other level to start an ambassadorship with a guy who has that kind of kink. Like, and if you don't bend the knee to every single little kink that they've got, then you're a bigot or you're going to get fired.
Dylan Mulvaney's Wiener, the musical.
Yeah. No, like literally there's music.
No, I know.
Normalize the bulge. It's like,
but what? I mean, when you look at Target, when you look at what happened to Bud Light, you have to ask yourself if you're responsible to the people who are on your board or shareholders within your company. I mean, you got to they sure as heck don't want to see that. I mean, the precipitous fall is unbelievable, and it happened quickly. It happened very quick. I mean, particularly Bud Light is the classic example. I mean, I heard a guy say you'll be teaching about the Bud Light debacle in universities on what not to do. I mean, when you start talking about marketing classes, Like you just can't do this.
Don't be Bud Light 101.
No, I mean, and the thing is, you take a brand that was number one, and yeah, well, we sold less beer than we had the year before. Well, that's perhaps true, and maybe there's a lot of other reasons for that. I don't know. I mean, the competition's ferocious, and that's another thing. If you have options, if you decide to take a stand like that, and you're the only one making beer, you can do whatever you want, but you're not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are tons of options out there, and people are like, well, I'll just start drinking this instead. It's the stigma that gets attached to it. And you've done that. And you can look, by the way, at Sturgis and see that. I mean, Sturgis, they had the Budweiser Bud Light tent. That was empty.
All in.
Those dudes ain't drinking it. They're not going to. They're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Because of one idiot that you allowed to roam free in your marketing department. No one put any stop signs up. Nobody red flagged that you went, oh, okay. Who, by the way, isn't even a customer of the product.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not a fan of the product or the brand for that matter, but she had the marketing degree behind her and all the virtue signaling checkoffs were there. And you wrecked an entire brand. You did it. Congratulations. But that wasn't, I mean, somebody had to sign off on that. So I'm like, well, you guys signed off on it. But anyway, that's just one of those weird things. I mean, I don't understand.
Scott, there's this story, and it's been bothering me this morning, and I didn't think I was going to get to it today, but it's that Compass Realty. And, these corporations don't care about middle America and what actual people think. So this woman, she's a mother. Classic story. She lives of TikTok, shared this. She's in Benicia. I think that's in California, I think. Benicia, California. Yeah. So she spoke at a school board meeting talking about gender ideology being forced into the curriculum, and these leftist activists fuming, they got to work, they tracked down her employer, and they got Compass Realty to fire her. So her employer wound up caving and they fired her because she spoke at a school board meeting. And this is a quick clip, Scott. Do we have time for it?
Yeah, we got time. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
I got to play this for you because you're going to be
let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Is Benicia open-minded? Is this a town that values free speech? If you disagree with someone, would you contact their employer and demand they be fired? Here is my story. I was enjoying life in this beautiful small town with a happy family and a successful career. And as a mom of 3, I'm an advocate for my children, so I pay attention to what they are teaching in the schools. Did you know the Benicia Unified School District just approved new sexual education curriculum? On April 20th, I spoke at the school board meeting to say I disagreed with several items in the new lesson plans. You can hear what I said in the public video provided by the school district on their YouTube channel. Within days, letters were written to the Benicia Herald, the Vallejo Times-Herald, and my company's corporate headquarters saying I was anti-equity, anti-trans, anti-Black, anti-choice, and a homophobe because I dared to disagree with the new school curriculum.
So the video goes on and she shares, a video footage of her town. And, what really got me was the media. I mean, she names the media, the Times Herald, all of these people. They sent directly to her company a statement saying she was anti-Black, anti-trans, homophobic. And all she did was say, hey, I really don't want my kid learning about sex in school at like the age of 4.
Right.
That's all she said. And then she got fired.
And that's just it, right? I mean, what we're seeing, what corporate America has to understand and get to eventually is stop bending your knee to these people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't consume your product anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And again, we've seen it in our business. We've seen it. I've seen it. I got one guy, I don't even know where the hell he is. He constantly is banging the drum on how awful we are and how he's going to get us canceled and how, the other show I'm on, how he's going to get us canceled and how he's contacted advertisers and all this. What's his problem? Well, we said maybe leave the kids alone when it comes to trans surgeries. They didn't like that. So, and then they want to come on the air with you. Well, let me come on. Well, that doesn't work this way.
No. my
No,
show. Get off.
we're not doing that. See the names on the show? Our show. We determine that. You don't.
Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's insanity. But you know what? It's time for the Republicans to step up too and say, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not playing this game.
Yeah.
They sit back and they watch indictment after indictment on Trump and other nonsense that breaks out. They don't do anything.
Where's the indictments against Joe Biden?
Well, step up. Where's the articles of impeachment?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, nobody wants to play this game, but you already played it. You've set the rules. This is how the game's played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just how it works. All right, Kat, don't get canceled. I'll see you tomorrow.
Don't get canceled. Scott Robbins.
Okay.
On Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins tonight at 8 o'clock. You can't cancel them here on Cities 92.9. We'll always carry the show. But you can check it out tonight at 8 o'clock. Speaking about canceling, Carla Campbell Jackson here locally, she tried to cancel State Farm, and she said that they retaliated against her because of her race, and they fired her because of her race. But the court said, you can't, you're not providing evidence that suggests that. That's next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. Smash that like button. I'd 100% go back to Bud Light under new ownership. Yes, I do miss Bud Light. I like Bud Light, actually. It's not that bad. I like Busch Light specifically. Maybe not so much Bud Light. I like Busch. I like just downing a couple of those because they're like water. But you're right. If it were to have some new ownership, maybe. The Anheuser-Busch family, they actually want to buy it back, buy the brand back because they've put the brand into the ground. And like Scott said, it's like this. It's all you had to do was come out and say you're sorry. That's all you had to do. And like what? You're afraid of being canceled by the left? They're not even your customers. Is that why you don't want to come out and say you're sorry? You catered to a weird kink. The guy is beyond gay. He's beyond he's even beyond transgender because he dresses up as a little girl and pretends to be a pubescent girl on TikTok. Like, this is a clear kink. It's not even a normal transgender person like Caitlyn Jenner. You know, I guarantee you if they had Caitlyn Jenner become a spokesperson for Bud Light, it wouldn't have caused this reaction. It's because Dylan Mulvaney is actually a weirdo, and you hired him as an ambassador. I guarantee if Caitlyn Jenner, trans person, who, and believe me, I don't think that adults should transition. I don't think that children should transition. It's going to kill you in the end. And it's unnatural and it's wrong. So I'm going to be very definitive when I say that. I'm not being soft on that. I don't agree with transgenderism at all. It's wrong and it's bad for humanity. However, I will say that if there's a transgender person out there who fits the mold for what actual transgenderism or what I call gender dysphoria is, that's Caitlyn Jenner. Suffered with it for multiple years. People have said that Bruce Jenner was very much feminine and thought that he was a woman, and people called it. Like, people weren't surprised when he came out as a woman, Caitlyn Jenner. And he actually might have suffered from something called gender dysphoria, and isn't a part of this social contagion where, I'm going to be trans and I'm going to dress up as a girl for clicks. Because that is exactly what Dylan Mulvaney does. Dylan Mulvaney is very mentally ill. Also, I would say Caitlyn Jenner is mentally ill as well, gender dysphoria. However, there is more of a social contagion to what Dylan Mulvaney does than Caitlyn Jenner does. Caitlyn Jenner literally had no marketing clout. Now, maybe it was a way to kind of get his name back out there, Bruce Jenner, because he was irrelevant. I don't know. But when I look at Bruce Jenner and Caitlyn Jenner, when I look at that situation, it looks much different than that of what Dylan Mulvaney is doing. What Dylan Mulvaney is doing is kink, and it's weird. And if you don't bend your knee to that, then you're a bigot for some odd reason. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. A black fired worker accusing State Farm of retaliation and discrimination on the basis of race. They fired her because she was black? Well, that's not right. Oh, wait a second. It turns out that she didn't have any evidence to support that claim, and the media has gone silent. Of course, I'm talking about Carla Campbell Jackson. The court documents say that she didn't have any evidence to support that State Farm fired her because she was black or discriminated against her. So she filed this allegation back in May of 2016. At that time, Carla Campbell Jackson, she um, worked as a claims section manager for State Farm in Michigan. And in 2019, get this federal agency called the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, they even came out and said that she had a reasonable cause for these claims. But then you sift through these court documents, which I did, and then you start to really see what this is all about. Before I get into what the court documents say, you need to know that this federal agency seeking $474,000 in back pay and damages for Carla Campbell Jackson. And they also wanted to re educate 10 State Farm employees through diversity training. So now let's get into today court documents. It looks like she was actually fired for sending out all kinds of personal emails. So she sent out 4,700 emails sent in a 17-month period that appeared to be non-business related correspondence. And according to the court documents, they say that there was some inappropriate email usage and there was confidential information shared. She works as a claims manager. This is wrong. You can't do that. But of course, there's a lack of accountability there. And she says at the time when she was terminated by Garcia, the VP of Human Resources for the company, she even agreed that her communications via email were personal in nature and she apologized for it. And then she says this, and this is how you know she lacks accountability or responsibility. She tries to say that other employees do it, so why can't I? And then she goes in and she does this whole lawsuit type thing where she's saying she was fired because of race. Then she digs out like this letter that was sent to 50,000 State Farm employees. So it wasn't just addressed to her. There was a letter someone sent. I don't know who sent it. I don't know if they ever found out who sent it. Some wacko somewhere sent this really distasteful, racist letter, which is actually racist. He said in the letter, somebody, I don't know who this somebody is, but he was a wacko who sent it to like 50,000, or no, there was a racist meme. And there was another letter that was sent to all kinds of State Farm employees as well. So she was trying to say that this racist meme that was sent to 50,000 State Farm employees, not just to her, and this letter sent not just to her, was racism on behalf of State Farm. I don't see how that kind of clicks, but the letter says, quote, "The silent majority has been waiting for 10 years, and finally the tables have turned on the minorities, and the silent majority can speak out again." And there's more things in the letter, but yeah, the letter was bad. However, I want to point this out. It's clear that this was not racism on behalf of State Farm. That's like me getting hate mail or people saying something mean to me in the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. You can check out the show online. That's like somebody saying something mean to me and then me going and getting upset to my employer about it, but not only saying something mean to me, but saying something mean to the entire staff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? State Farm is not like there's wackos out there who send letters. There's wackos out there who send distasteful memes. And you can't pin that on your employer, especially when they come out and they, do their due diligence in trying to investigate the whole thing. And it wasn't like they just threw it on the back burner. They were actually actively working with her to try to get to the bottom of who was sending these letters, who sent the meme. And she tried to say that that was evidence of racism. It's not. I like this one. Kat, don't you know that requiring evidence is actually a product of systemic white supremacy? Yes, TK. Yeah. Um, yeah, the court said you need evidence. And she tried, and the reason why there was all kinds of things where she said that State Farm was racist and they showed racist behavior. But I mean, like, people were sending, racist memes or a racist letter, and, several employees got this. This wasn't directed to her in any kind of way. And it wasn't coming from State Farm. It was coming from people who are wackos. They are out there, right? And I'm sure that the corporation gets hate mail, being that they're a global corporation and the climate of everything. But yeah, so that's the lack of evidence. We'll be back in just a second. hi, we're the government. And we'd really appreciate it if you stopped talking about Maui. Hi, we're the government. And we'd really appreciate it if you would stop talking about how the power company was told several times to de-electrify their power lines and they didn't do it. Hi, we're the government. And we'd really appreciate it if you stop talking about how the state of Hawaii is looking to acquire the land that has now been reduced to cinders and ashes. Hi, we're the government. Please stop talking about Maui and pay attention to the aliens. We're going to get to that story here coming up in just about 30 minutes. You won't want to miss it. This is The Morning Buzz, and I am here live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. You can see me live with, drumroll please, Pastor Tim. You know him, you love him, and he's from the Tabernacle. I go to church there. And I serve as a youth leader. I also do a little bit of the media ministry there, and it's so much fun. And they're actually hosting something this Saturday at 10 a.m. And I wanted to have Pastor Tim in studio to talk about the importance of prayer and a back to school prayer. So that's happening at Saturday, 10 a.m., West Hovey Avenue. Pastor Tim, thanks so much for joining me.
Good morning, Kat. It's so good to be here. It's exciting, in the midst of morning filled with bad news. It's good to have a good news segment, and this is positive. We're so excited. For many years, churches throughout our community would host a back to school prayer gathering at the beginning of the school year, the week of school. And then COVID hit, as you know, and kind of put a kibosh on all of that. And we were approached this past week by a number of people and asked us to host and lead and to resume the community, Bloomington Normal community and area back to school prayer gathering. And we are excited. Man, what a great thing to do. It's ecumenical. We invite people from all different ages and races and churches, denominations to come. It's just a time to gather together to pray and to intercede on behalf of our students and teachers, faculty, and staff. We're excited about it.
Well, and a little background information. You mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic and how a lot of these, back to school prayers stopped after the pandemic in other churches in the community. And the Tabernacle is kind of its own thing when it came to the pandemic. So what happened to the Tabernacle during the pandemic?
Yeah, we like most churches, obviously in the community, shut down our weekly worship service, weekly gathering worship services, and went on social media for, I believe, 2 months. And then we felt the Lord leading and calling us to resume weekly gatherings in worship. And so we were the first church in 2020 to open the doors, welcome the community for people that wanted to come. Church has always been a choice. Every Sunday morning, even this next Sunday morning, is just a choice that area churches offer people. Whoever wants to come and worship is welcome to do so. And so we felt, hey, we felt God leading us, guiding us, directing us, calling us to open the doors. So we did. And it was a tremendous turnout. And we just said, hey, come one, come all, come none. Either way, we're going to have church, even if it's just me and my family. And we were shocked at the surprise of the attendance. The church was packed out with people that wanted to gather and worship God. And it was a choice, that people had, and we offered that, and it's just been a tremendous turnout actually ever since. I mean, every week we get new people that are coming that honor what God's doing in our midst, and really the courage to kind of be countercultural. We're certainly countercultural at the Tab, and we address issues that many pastors and local churches don't, and so I think people are honoring us and respecting us for our stance.
And you bring this up, come none. Bloomington Normal, at least according to some community faith leaders, they have said that the church attendance in Bloomington Normal specifically is down far, where like near 80%.
Right.
If I had to put a number on it, it's probably close 80% of people are not going to church on a regular basis.
That's correct. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And The reason why I bring that up is because I also wanted to tell folks that Pastor Tim from the Tabernacle on West Heavy Avenue also has, and us at Cities 92.9, we said, that number is crazy. And I've had personal messages, I can't make it out to church because I work on Sundays. I work that morning shift.
Sure.
And I said, well, we're going to have Pastor Tim. It makes sense. He's had radio programs in the past.
Yes.
Come do the show called The Victorious Life, which is on Sunday starting at 12:30. So it's right after church kind of gets out if you're getting out of work that shift. So tell me about The Victorious Life and your radio program and the goal of it.
Absolutely. Well, we're very excited and honored again to be on Cities 92.9 every Sunday afternoon from 12:30 to 1. And The Victorious Life is all about coming alongside people, aiding and assisting them to live the life that God has called, designed, and destined them to live. And so we're just a voice of encouragement, a voice of support. Of course, I share each week a short message that God puts on my heart from the Word of God to help people live the triumphant, overcoming, victorious life that Jesus Christ said He came to give us. Jesus said in John 10:10, "I've come to give you life, and that more abundantly." So, boy, a lot of people in the world today, especially here in Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, are living anything but the victorious life. So we want to help people win in life. We like to say we've been wired to win. God never created a loser. God created winners. And so we're excited about that and so honored again to be here on Cities 92.9 every Sunday afternoon at 12:30.
And, he's not afraid to speak out, get behind that microphone and tell you about how Jesus Christ is King and how Jesus Christ is the way to living the victorious life. Neither was this young man, Marcus Schrader, who kind of has a local element here. He's in Wisconsin. And he was arrested for reading a Bible verse out on the sidewalk. And I've had him come on the program before. And he has some mutual friends here in Bloomington Normal of mine. And he was on a speech and debate team with actually, I think it's the McLean County Republicans. She works with the McLean County Republicans. That she had a son on the speech and debate team. And he's out here on the sidewalk, and the video has gone viral. I asked Pastor Tim this morning if he's seen it. He hasn't seen it. But I was curious, from a pastor's perspective, what if you go out there with a amplification device of some kind of microphone and you're out on the sidewalk and you're just reading Bible verses? All this kid was doing was reading Bible verses, and he got arrested for this amplification of sound. The U.S. Supreme Court has said religious political speech with the use of amplification of sound is legal. Like, you can't arrest people for that. And then they charged him with resisting arrest. Kid doesn't, and he's a kid, right? And he's not resisting in any kind of way. Now, he is hesitant because he doesn't know what's going on. I will say that it looks like he's hesitant and he's scared.
Sure.
He's like 19, I think, or 18, something like that. And your thoughts as a pastor?
Sure.
What does this mean?
Well, it's a sad day when our culture and our country starts persecuting people for whatever religious beliefs or freedoms that they've been given. And thank God for the Constitution. Unfortunately, many of our leaders today don't believe in the Constitution. In fact, are trying to rewrite it, as you know, Kat, all too well. But according to our Constitution, we've been given, as United States citizens, freedom of speech and freedom of religion and the free practice thereof. And that was really the whole basis of why we opened the tab in 2020 in the midst of in the height of the pandemic, was we have the freedom to choose, obviously to adhere to, our government's recommendation and certainly Governor Pritzker's recommendation during that time. But we've also been given the freedom to not follow it. And so we chose not to follow it, obviously, and opened the doors of our church. The same is true of this young man. Regardless of what you're preaching, whatever the religion is or claim is, our Constitution protects that freedom and that right as a citizen to express your thoughts and so thank God the Constitution upheld that and recognized it as such. And boy, I tell you what, we need more people, not proclaiming words of hate and racism, bigotry, and prejudice, but words of love and words of grace and goodness. And I applaud this young man and any other person for that matter that, is courageous enough to, say, hey, God loves you. And, God's not mad at you. God loves you. God has a plan for your life. And we've all been created differently. And thank God for that. My land, if we all look the same and dress the same, life would be sure boring and the world would look pretty gray. But God gave diversity. God's the creator of diversity. And that isn't just skin color or gender or race, but certainly diversity in thought. And sometimes, we just need to agree to disagree and recognize, listen, hey, if we snuff out your rights to express your thoughts, even if I'm in disagreement with you, what's that say of me? Well, that means maybe someday my thoughts and my freedoms can be eliminated and removed. So thank God for freedom of speech, regardless of the speech. Thank God for freedom of religion, regardless of the religion that we have here, because the United States of America is very unique across the landscape of the world. Most countries don't have those freedoms, and you can be imprisoned, let alone prosecuted and put to death because of what you believe and what you speak. So I applaud this young man and others like him.
And folks, back to school prayer Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Tabernacle on West Heavy Avenue. You're going to want to be there. So why prayer back to school? What's the importance of a prayer going back to school for these kids? What do you think the prayer is going to do?
Absolutely. Well, prayer is powerful. I believe the second greatest thing we can do for one another outside of love, love is the greatest power in the world, is to pray for somebody, is to intercede on their behalf before God the Father and bring that person's name and place up before the throne. And so we're going to be doing that this Saturday at 10. But it also is a covering. When we pray for people, we're asking God's blessing upon them, God's presence within them, and protection around them. Unfortunately, we all know too well that the enemy has infiltrated schools with people that have killed students. Our the last several years, there's too many accounts, salt and peppered, with people that have taken guns into schools and killed innocent children, teachers, staff, and faculty. So we just want to pray protection over our schools, over our teacher, over our leaders. We want to pray over the entire school year, that everybody has a wonderful year. Boy, a safe year. If there's any place that should be safe in our communities, it should be our schools. It should be the houses of our schools, and our kids and those that work there shouldn't have any fear of anything bad happening to them. So we want to pray for that. We also just want to pray that they have a good year and that they learn lots and grow as individuals.
Yes. And that's Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Tabernacle. Real quick, Pastor Tim, did you see the Maui fires? There was a church, and it went untouched.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
Yes.
So you said power of prayer. And I was like, oh boy, in the midst of the fire. I bet that entire congregation was just praying, and
yes.
just untouched. It's the only, for blocks, it's the only
wonderful
building that went untouched. All right. We've got to take a break. Pastor Tim,
thanks for having me, Kat,
for coming in. We're going to be back. Don't forget it. Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Tabernacle for prayer back to school. The only church that I know that's doing it.
That's right.
So be sure to come out Saturday, 10 a.m. People are scared to go to church for fear of being labeled an extremist. That's a text from our text line. Thanks so much to Pastor Tim. Like I said, folks, there's a back to school prayer. The only, from what I understand, Bloomington Normal Church hosting a back to school prayer this year, the Tabernacle on West Heavy Avenue. Local churches used to do a back to school prayer, but it kind of got phased out after the pandemic. So that's Saturday, 10 a.m. If you want more details, you can text the text line at 309-451-9299. Now, Maui. 3 months before the wildfires in Maui, there was a story that ran in civilbeat.org, and here's what the story says. Maui's zoning code is more than 60 years old. Where's the update? Property owners and government officials are stuck in a continued state of confusion, conflicting interpretations, and complex layers of administration. So they were upset that Maui County got away from all the way from 1960s without a serious update or a revamp of their zoning codes. How could it be that these people are able to live on these beachfront properties? How can it be that the same families are allowed to live in this area? How can it be that these people are able to retain their property even though those property values have gone way up? They've gone up so much. And then suddenly there's this fire. And now the insurance companies are saying that they're not going to cover it. And then the power company that produces or that supplies 95% of the energy on the island, the power company said that they weren't going to de-electrify the power lines, even though they knew that there were high winds coming and they were told to de-electrify the power lines. And now the governor has said that the state is going to acquire the land. They wanted to change those zoning codes. And now the state is trying to acquire the land after it's been reduced to nothing but ashes, and this probably the most beautiful place on earth, one of the most beautiful places on earth. People are sifting through the ashes of their shattered communities there. And Joe Biden, he's not going. Let's take a listen. Tulsi Gabbard went there, and she was on with Laura Ingraham, Fox News.
Tulsi, you just got back from Maui. Please tell us what you saw there. This is so heartbreaking for all Americans to see.
Yeah, Laura, it's difficult to put into words this tragic loss that continues to grow, that we're continuing to see and experience and feel every time there are more and more names and numbers of our friends and neighbors in Lahaina who have perished because of this wildfire. Now, there's still over 1,000 people who are missing. There's still the vast majority.
So she goes on and she talks about, how there's a vast number of people who are no longer or are missing, and the county, the state, federal government, nobody's stepping up and helping them out. And I want to point this out. Joe Biden, he hasn't gone there, and he is planning on a visit on Monday. That's what he said. But Hawaii residents really don't want Joe Biden there. Because his response has been so bad. He actually is providing these $700 payments per household. That's all he's doing per household. And if you ask me, I don't know what cash is going to do in this situation. To me, I think they need like food and water, because Tulsi was saying how these families, they were bathing their children and they were bathing themselves with bottled water because the water is contaminated due to the fire. And I don't know what cash is really going to do for them, because their houses are burned down, their grocery stores are burned down. Not to mention $700 per household is very, very, very it's not a whole lot in the state of Hawaii. Okay, but there are some good people doing some good things. Northern Illinois Food Bank. They are sending out 25,000 pounds of food. They packed it up. It's got long shelf life, including tuna, peanut butter, granola bars, things like that. Aldi, they donated 22 million pounds of food to that food bank, so that way they could send out this food. So there's good people doing good things. Joe Biden is not one of them. It shouldn't shock us because he didn't go to East Palestine, Ohio, when people were literally losing their voices due to the chemicals released out into the air, the derailment. And that was a whole other issue too. It didn't make a whole lot of sense what happened there with that train. It was like a big old system failure. There was a bearing on one of the trains, and it took them hours to, say, hey, we've got a bad bearing. And, it shouldn't have happened. And this shouldn't have happened. And these were preventable, or like they could have prevented this Maui wildfire. They could have prevented that train derailment. So I don't know. This doesn't quite pass the sniff test for me, this Maui wildfire. And the U.S. government, I'm guaranteed that they don't like that the locals are sharing videos onto places like Twitter and talking about how they didn't even have, like, their water was shut off at the time of the fire, so they couldn't even put the fire out if they wanted to. Uh, so I don't know. There's a lot of things out there that don't quite pass the sniff test for me. I do want to talk a little bit about this story, Carla Campbell Jackson. I talked a little bit about it. Uh, Now, she tried to go after State Farm for firing her on the basis of race. She claimed that it was retaliation because of her race and because State Farm is racist. Well, it turns out, according to this court document, she didn't have evidence of that. Now, she pointed to a couple of things, like a racist meme that was sent to 50,000 State Farm employees. She tried to say that State Farm didn't do anything about it, which was not true. They did their due diligence and they said that, hey, the human resources representative said, hey, I've already been made aware of these concerns about the email and we are investigating it. So they responded to that racist meme that was sent out on March 23rd of 2016, which is when she kind of made her allegations in 2016, May of 2016. She was a claims section manager for State Farm in Michigan. Now, in 2019, a few years after the fact, she got the Equal Employment Opportunity federal agency to say that she had reasonable cause for her claims. Now, this EEOC, they were working to try to get this woman about $500,000 in back pay and damages. And then they wanted to re-educate about 10 State Farm employees through a diversity training of some kind. But the court threw it all out. They said, what are you talking about? This racist meme was sent to 50,000 State Farm employees, and State Farm did their due diligence, and they said that they were investigating it, and they were trying to track down who sent it. There was another instance where there was a letter sent to several employees, and this letter did have racist comments in it, and I'm sure it was sent by some wacko. I wouldn't be shocked if it was sent by a leftist. They mentioned Donald Trump in the letter, and a lot of times people who suffer from TDS act this way. But somebody sent a letter in April of 2016, and right away, we've got State Farm issuing the next day a statement to all of its employees. Carla Campbell Jackson, being the activist that she is, she just can't let people do her job. She went around collecting these letters from other employees that had received this racist letter, and she was told by Garcia, he said, look, this is my job. He goes, I don't need you going around there sharing the letters or opposing the letters to people and acting as an activist. You are an employee. Okay. Things like this happen, and I'm equipped to deal with it. Okay. So um, he said, let HR do their job. So they did. They even thanked her in an email, Campbell Jackson, for reporting the letter, and they informed her that the executive teams in human resources and administrative services were handling that letter. And Garcia, later in May, fired her due to inappropriate email usage. So she's saying that this is retaliation because of this. I don't think so. When you look at the numbers here, numbers don't lie. Look at her emails. You've got near 5,000 emails sent in a 17-month period that appeared to be non-business related. And according to these court documents, some of these emails even contained possible confidential information. And at the time when she was terminated, she agreed that her communications were personal in nature. She was coordinating a family reunion in some of these emails. I mean, you can't do that. You're going to get fired for doing that. Like, duh. And this is how I know it's because she lacks accountability. That's why she was fired. So she apologized, okay, and she should have just left it at that. But then she comes back and she says, "Well, the other employees were doing it, and they send non-business emails out." And that's how I know this was, hey, you just lack accountability. You shouldn't have been doing this. You got fired for it. And now you want to come back and say that the company's racist because there was a couple of wackos who sent maybe a racist theme, who sent a racist letter to several State Farm employees. You can't control that as a corporation. Like, what are you supposed to do? Stop people from emailing people. You can't do that. But State Farm, yeah, they had a good case. They argued their point. They said, "Look, you need to prove that there was a lack of diligence on our behalf. You need to prove that there was racist comments made to you specifically, and that we were prejudiced to you, who is asserting that we fired you on racial biases." Like, uh, so an amazing story. But my question is, the only question remains, where's the media on this? Because at the time when she made the allegations, it was huge news. Black worker fired from State Farm because they're racist. That was the headline. And it's like, where's the Chicago Sun-Times now? Are they going to talk about how she didn't have any evidence whatsoever? All right, we're going to come back. One thing I want to talk about, Joe Biden making some really bizarre, curious statements about how he wants to take a bunch of children out for ice cream. That's next. Good morning. Hey, be sure to smash that like button if you're watching. And hey, one thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that at the Tabernacle at West Heavy Avenue on Saturday, I'll be there greeting people as you come in. There's a back to school prayer. That's from what I understand, the only church in Bloomington Normal hosting a back to school prayer. It's kind of a traditional thing, but local churches stopped doing it after the pandemic, which is kind of interesting. So, um, yeah, we're going to be hosting that, and I'm inviting you to come out and pray for our kids. It should be a safe place for them. We're going to pray for protection for the children going back to school, and for administrators, for teachers, for the community. This is a back to school prayer. This is something that's very good for this community. So be sure to attend if you can, and it'll be a short service, and there's going to be some music, some prayer. It'll be a good time. Now, one thing that I want to talk about here too is Apple removing Glenn Beck's podcasts from iTunes. So, does the big tech censorship ever stop? And have you ever been censored on social media? Throw it into the comments section if you have. I do want to get to some of your comments. Well, on the trans topic, we have this BS going on up north, and it's fully supported by their governor. I don't know what one or what you're talking about there. If you're listening, Darren, go ahead. And up north, is that Chicago? Um, yeah, I don't know what exactly is going on with the trans stuff. I know that Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed some legislation here recently that allows these multi-occupancy use bathrooms in public spaces to be genderless or gender neutral. So now, if you are going to school and you walk into a multi-occupancy, so that's a bathroom with stalls in it, you could possibly see a man or a woman or a boy or girl if you're in a grade school of some kind, because he signed that legislation. Now, I think back in 2019 is when he signed the single occupancy. So this is kind of like the handicap stall. He made those gender neutral in 2019. So now the multi occupancy bathrooms are going to be gender neutral. So That's here in the state of Illinois. So if you walk into a public place, you have the choice to go gender neutral when it comes to your bathrooms, and you might just walk in and see a man if you're a woman, and you might just see a woman if you're a man in the bathroom. Creepy Joe striking again. So he is really living up to his nickname, Creepy Joe. And he spoke to a crowd of children. And basically, what he said was, hey, little kids, I'm going to take you out to ice cream afterwards or after this speech. And it was quite bizarre, his comments. And he was supposed to be talking about the so called Inflation Reduction Act. Now, JFK, hang on, let me look up his comments about. He said something about inflation and how they are like loan or loan mafias. Yeah, I don't know. So Robert, uh, Robert RFK Jr. Um, he came out and he was talking about inflation, and he was talking about how, you know, inflation is causing us to have to put things on credit cards. And basically, they want that to happen. The government wants you to put things on credit cards because the interest rates are at like 22%. State Farm is just so racist. They actually Carla Campbell Jackson, her husband, is still working there. They're so racist that her husband is still working there. Hey, this is the morning buzz. Yes. So she went after State Farm. And we're the only media outlet willing to cover this. The court, essentially said, we're throwing this out. There's no evidence. And I don't even know how the EEOC, this federal agency, said that she had a reasonable cause for all of this. I It beats me because you read through the documents and you're like, how did she make that jump that State Farm fired her due to racial biases? Uh, but none of the evidence that she presented was from State Farm directly. It was all like random people sending random memes to employees, random letters to employees, not even directly addressed to her. But because she was sending all kinds of personal emails, she was eventually terminated, which makes sense, especially when you work in State Farm or at State Farm. There's confidential information. You're dealing with people's claims. She was some sort of claims manager in Michigan for State Farm. And it's like, you can't, and it wasn't one, it wasn't two, wasn't three personal emails. It was near 5,000 emails she was sending that were personal in nature. And she admits that it was personal in nature. And then she apologized for it. But yet, still, somehow, she tried to say that State Farm fired her because of racial biases or racial bias. It's like, what? You're crazy. No, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that the EEOC, this federal agency, it said, yeah, you kind of have a case. We could probably go for $500,000. And then you read the court documents and you're like, what? How? What? How did this even? All right, I do want to get to the story. Joe Biden, Creepy Joe, striking again. Joe Biden strikes again. He talks to children about his hairy legs. I got hairy legs and ice cream. He does talk about ice cream a lot. So Creepy Joe Biden, there he is, living up to his nickname. He spoke to a crowd of children, telling them that he knows of some really good places to get some ice cream and that Daddy, he refers to himself as Daddy, uh, is gonna go get the kids some ice cream. So let's take a listen to this here on the bus. And if you're watching online, you can see Joe Biden. I highly recommend you go to the stream because you can actually see the reactions of the people around Joe Biden at the time he makes this wild claim or wild statement. Here we go.
And I want to say one thing to your children. I know some really great ice cream places around here.
Oh boy. And he goes, I know some really great ice cream.
And Daddy owes you.
Daddy owes
Talk
you.
to me afterwards.
Talk to me
Folks, thanks.
What?
And I want
Okay, I'll stop playing that. Now, what's beautiful about this story and what's actually kind of funny, the woman behind Joe Biden to his right, she's in this white shirt and she is like looking around, she's glancing around very uncomfortably after after Joe Biden says daddy owes you and she's like, "Is anybody else hearing this? What's everybody's reaction because I'm not understanding what he's getting at here." And this is not his first time. Okay, he's no stranger to controversy surrounding his conduct with children. He's just not. And the most recent time I remember is him actually nibbling on a girl, nibbling on a little girl who was in her mother's arms in Finland. Yes, nibbling. And he also is accused in a diary entry written by his own daughter, Ashley Biden, of taking showers with her at a young age. And she says in the diary that that was probably not appropriate. So, in an alleged journal entry from 2019 January, she says, I have always been boy crazy, hypersexualized at a young age. I remember somewhat being sexualized with a family member. I remember having sex with my friends at a young age, and I remember showers with my dad, probably not appropriate. So, yeah, he's no stranger to this kind of conduct with children. I'm going to be back on the other side. There's actually an interesting story. 2022 clip is going viral and it's kind of funny and it kind of pertains to Joe Biden's creepiness. So we're going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. That's Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube. Hey, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. One thing that I want to get to today, before I get to this viral clip from 2022, is this story surrounding police departments and fire departments closing down. So, an entire police force resigned in this small little Minnesota town. The chief was citing low compensation. And he gets up before the city council and he says, look, at $22 an hour, you're not going to see another person again in this department. So the entire police force resigned in this small town. And that is nothing new. There has been several police departments that have closed down due to bigger cities offering more money and they can't recruit people to these smaller offices because these big cities, what they're doing is sign-on bonuses. They're doing all kinds of things to try to fill their departments up. Now, I bring this up because there's a local thing going on in my hometown, and I think that this is going to be a big problem going forward. Custer Park Fire is possibly going to be consolidated into the Braidwood Fire Department. Now, Braidwood, Custer Park, it's all about an hour up north. And Braidwood is a bit bigger than Custer Park. It's not huge, but it's a bit bigger. And the fire chief there, for reference, makes about $110,000 a year. Recently got a raise. That's just the fire chief. He gets $110,000 a year. Now, the entire tax revenue going into the Custer Park Fire Department, the volunteer fire department, is about $240K. So that's for the entire department, for maintaining equipment, things like that. That's not a whole lot of money for an entire fire department. Okay. So a lot of these guys are working solely on volunteer hours. And yeah, maybe their response times are low or not as fast or whatever, but it's because they don't have the money. Okay. And this is a call on the community. If you have a volunteer fire department or a volunteer sheriff's office, you need to donate to these guys, because we do not want government firefighters. We do not want government police officers, because at the end of the day, who are they going to respond to? That is the people who sign their paychecks, the city, the government. So now Braidwood is looking to uh, take in and consolidate, and they are going to raise taxes. That's going to cause them to raise taxes. They're going to say that, oh, well, we acquired all of this equipment and we need to maintain that equipment. So they're going to raise your taxes on you anyway. So you might as well donate to the Custer Park Volunteer Fire Department. And this is applicable to all of these volunteer fire departments. So if you're in Colfax, Leroy, Lexington, one of these smaller fire departments, if they're all volunteer, be on the lookout. And how I know that this is a top-down kind of decision, there's a bill out there, and it's a bipartisan legislation. And anytime you see bipartisan legislation in Illinois, you should know that that's probably not good. You should not be working with Democrats on anything in the state of Illinois, because they have the supermajority. Okay, there's no reason to sign bipartisan legislation. Now they're offering tiny little checks to these volunteer firefighters. What I think is going on is they're trying to figure out how many volunteer firefighters, police officers are out there, and how strong these volunteer fire departments are. And whatever ones are definitely not strong, then they're going to go in and they're going to communicate that to the city officials in these bigger cities, and they're going to say, "Hey, what we want you to do is propose an ordinance that says, hey, we're going to try to get Custer Park to be consolidated into the city, and we're going to raise the taxes on the people. We're going to hire a couple more of my friends, and they're going to get these nice, fluffy $100,000 salary positions." So that is what is going on. They are trying to attack volunteer sheriff's offices, volunteer police departments, because they don't like them, because they can't control them. The Safety Act uh, pretty much eliminates volunteer sheriff's offices. They do that via, like, they're requiring them to do all kinds of crazy training. They're requiring all kinds of crazy, hey, you can't have this kind of tax base. You can't have, like, all this money anymore. And essentially what the Act does, it eliminates volunteer sheriff's offices. Now, what's interesting is Republicans, and I'm not going to name them here because I'm sure that they didn't even really think about this. They have signed on to this grant. It's called the SAFER grant. So it's kind of ironic that the Safety Act and the SAFER grant, right? They're kind of close in name. The SAFER grants kind of give you like about $500 maybe to every firefighter in this volunteer fire department, and you have to apply for it. So what I think that the state of Illinois is doing, they're trying to figure out how many volunteer firefighters are in these departments. They're trying to sniff out to see how small your department is. And if they can, they're going to try to consolidate. You don't want that. Volunteer firefighters, they care about you. They're your neighbors, and they're out in these rural communities where the city of Bloomington fire is not going to be able to get out to Colfax in time. Okay, so support your local, or your local volunteer fire department and your local volunteer sheriff's offices, whatever ones are left, because it's keeping it away from big government. Morning. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you tuning in to the live stream. That's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. You can see me there. Smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. You can also text in at 309-451-9299. Now, Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about this 2022 news clip, which is pretty funny and it's gone viral. So there was this 71-year-old man who was accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at Walmart. In an unrelated story, a 78-year-old man was set to give the State of the Union address for the nation. This happened in 2022. Now it's all of a sudden getting viral again. So, the content deities are making this go viral again. And it's this local news network. And right before they start talking about that first story, or right after they start talking about this first story with the 71-year-old man being accused of touching this girl, they fly up a graphic. They put up a graphic on the TV and it shows Joe Biden's face. So it's really funny. The news anchor, she's like, and today, a 71-year-old man is being accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl. And then Joe Biden's face pops up. It's quite funny. And I still question this, right? Even a year later. Did that graphic editor, did he decide that he was just so sick and tired of Joe Biden's crap that, he was just going to slip up and, his way of saying, I quit, was putting up this graphic of Joe Biden and putting it up with this story about a 71-year-old dude touching little girls. And I'd imagine that graphics guy, the graphic editor, was putting on his Trump 2024 hat. He was flipping off everybody and he was like, you know what? I'm out of here, you guys. And I think it's the funniest mistake that has ever been made. But Joe Biden has a problem. He has a problem with groping. He has a problem with, he has a really tough time with little girls and sniffing them because their shampoo smells like raspberries or something. And he just can't help himself but sniff the top of their heads. And it's bizarre. And I wish more people drew attention to this and the media would draw attention to how bizarre this is. So, you guys have a great rest of your day. That's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate it. You guys have a blessed day. I love you. And don't forget, Saturday, 10 a.m., I'm inviting you. It's a back to school prayer. The Tabernacle on West Heavy Avenue. They're the only church, I think, in Bloomington Normal hosting a back to school prayer. It used to be a big thing in Bloomington Normal for years prior to the pandemic. But it's back, and it's back at the Tabernacle, 10 a.m. You guys have a great rest of the day, and I love you. Bye-bye.